Welcome to another edition of our Thursday night's class. Tonight's class was donated Leilui Nishmat Shulamit Bat Tamar. May the Torah that we learn and the outcome of it be Leilui Nishmata Shtei Tzura Nafsha V'Tzura V'Tzura Chaim Began Eden Elyon Im Kol HaTzidkaniyot B'Chol HaDorot Amen V'Amen. This week in the U.S. we're reading two parashiyot. In Israel they're reading one parasha, and it's done purposely that way because we have to catch up with the Israeli cycle of parashiyot, which differed on the last day of Pesach this year, which by us was a Shabbat, so we read a holiday reading, and in Israel it was already not Pesach, it was a regular weekday, so they read the parasha of the week. There are times in your life that you get to do unique things. Last Shabbat, when I was in Queens, was definitely one of them. My son, the week before, and he got Shlishi and I got Chamishi in Parashat Emor in Israel. And this past Shabbat, he got Shlishi and I got Chamishi in Queens. So, first time I can say in my life that I got the same Aliyah 2 weeks in a row in the same Parasha. That's a rare occurrence. But why do we catch up with Israel exactly this week? Why couldn't we do it a few weeks ago? Or what's the rush? Let's do it a week before Simchat Torah. So that's based on halakha. The halakha says that we read Parashat Bechukotai before Shavuot, but not directly the week before Shavuot, 2 Shabbats before Shavuot. So Shavuot Saturday night next week, so Shabbat we'll still read the Parasha and then we'll read that. Why do we read Bechukotai before Shavuot? The same concept of the reason why we read Kitavo before Rosh Hashanah. Because Shavuot has an element in it of renewal, of a judgment day as well, a judgment day for multiple things. The Gaon of Vilna says a judgment day for Torah, as we spoke last week, but the Chazal say in its simplicity otherwise. And as a result, being the Parashat Bechukotai has in it a bunch of harsh parts, segments. It's one of the 2 parts in the Torah that have harsh segments to it. So we want to read that before we get to a great day like Matan Torah, that we should be able to go into Matan Torah b'simcha. Otherwise known as Tichles Shana v'Kiloteh, the problems should end there. And exactly this, and Bamidbar, we also read as a result of the Torah being given to Am Yisrael in the Midbar. As a result of that, in combination with a wonderful, wonderful sefer that one of the gentlemen here, Mark, brought me a gift when we were in Israel 2 weeks ago, from Maran Rav Shach Zatzal, Rosh Shiva Zecher Tzadik Levacha Zchuto Yagen Aleinu. So it was playing in my mind the Parashat Bechukotai and Parashat Kitavo. It's the 2 times in the Torah that the Torah speaks a bit harsh, a bit more than a bit. It's kind of actually gory, graphic, and scary what it says there. To the point that many communities, I always included, have a custom that when we read that part of the parasha, we read it quietly and quickly as a symbol of that we don't want to have to deal with things like that. But life has its hardships and it comes with its tough times and its challenges. And now we have to analyze a little bit, what is it that we got to do to deal with turbulent times? You see on an airplane when the plane gets a little turbulent, so people that don't fly frequently or don't understand the aerodynamics well, they start turning pale, they pull their seatbelt tighter. I never understood that. If we're going down, we're going down, with or without, tight or not tight. Like, pull it tight, hold on to the sides. The whole plane's going to go down, you're going to stay in the air on a chair with your hands on the side. You'd rather go down at that point. I don't know. I'm not saying the seatbelt itself is actually important, because otherwise if the plane drops, you can hit the ceiling and hurt yourself very badly. But beyond that, people are scared of turbulence. It's the number 1 fear in the United States of America, and the second fear is the dentist. That's true, by the way. Those are the 2 largest anxieties in the U.S. The most, believe it or not, I didn't know this, but I have a friend who's in the business and he's very big in the business. I used to think that the biggest airport business is duty-free stores. That was always my assumption, because people have this false notion of things being cheap there. And when you're on vacation, you spend irrationally as well. So put 2 irrational thoughts together and boom, you have a gold mine. But that's not true. I have a friend who owns a very large chain of bars in airports. And surprisingly, it's a lot, and he owns duty-free companies as well, a very large duty-free company. And he told me, surprisingly, the bars are much, much more profitable than the duty-free stores. And he said, number one, in duty-free there's a lot of competition, but he said, number two, people before flights are tense. He said either the guy at the TSA angered them somehow or annoyed them, even though the poor guy was just doing his job, or they're just scared of flying, or something else, or stress, or the cab driver. There's so many things that go wrong from the time you leave your door to the time you get onto an airplane. So naturally, if they have that extra 3 minutes before they get aboard a plane, they're going to look for a drink as an escape. And that's a very unfortunate way to deal with turbulence. That's, in my world, called an alcoholic, if you have to escape a problem using alcohol. But one way or the other. But we as Jews in our personal lives try not to use other substances or means of making ourselves happy, except for the times that the Torah says to do so clearly. So obviously, the same Torah that predicts that there'll be times that'll be turbulent must have some sort of solution inside of it of coping mechanisms of how you deal with turbulence. Number one. Number two, you'll forgive me in advance, but for about 90 seconds I'll sound like a very big pessimist, even though I don't mean a word I'm saying. But I will lay a lot of facts out, and then we'll see how we deal with these facts. I don't know how many of you follow the news or not. I'm assuming today everybody does, because whether you like it or not, Apple sends you the notifications on your phone every few seconds, unless all of you have kosher phones. And I'm sure you saw that the President of the United States made a pretty critical decision. I don't know if it's good or not. I don't understand much in this. But it seems like it's the best interest of Israel, at least, to withdraw from the terrorist Barack Hussein Obama's Iran deal. And yeah, he decided to withdraw. Good idea, I guess. I don't know. I don't know much about global politics, and I don't understand the perspectives, but I do know that Hussein Obama definitely had no interest to help Israel in any way throughout his entire career. And way before his career as a president as well. As a result of him withdrawing, the Iranians obviously aren't so happy about it. I don't know if you can short the Iranian currency or not, but if you were able to, then you could have made a whole lot of money on Forex in the past 36 hours. Because their currency sooner or later is not even going to be worth the paper that it's written on. And the economy went into shambles again, and people are not so happy about this, and so on. All over a lunatic whose whole agenda is to plant terrorism in every cell he can in the entire world. And all the billions of dollars that Hussein Obama gave him was used to plant terrorism all over the world. That's where the money went to. Right before this, Benjamin Netanyahu, I'm not saying this for good reasons, it might be for political reasons, but again, I'm not here to talk about the people. I'm here to just give you the storyline. Put up a pretty good show one day. 8 o'clock, primetime news in Israel. He gets on national television, and his famous speech, if you didn't watch it, you might want to watch it, it's actually pretty cool to see, with the two black tablecloths. Only in Israel you can have such an important speech with two black tablecloths being used, showing the world that the Israeli government, obviously it was all a gift from God, had the ability to send Mossad agents into Iran, get into their most secret inner circles that even their own ministers didn't know about, get into their most hidden vaults, take an entire vault out, and then get it out of the country and make it out safely, with everything inside of it, which was all the documents about their nuclear programs. That's pretty mind-boggling, right? Even those who write movie scripts, screenplays, didn't think of ideas like this. This is beyond their imagination too. And here, Hashem helped, they did it this year. Unbelievable. Political analysts around the world, including many of those that hate Israel with a passion, aka the New York Times, the New York Post, the Wall Street Journal, and a long list of others, Washington Post, that tops them all, and you know, all the liberalists, many of them wrote articles saying that they disagree with what Israel did. It might even be a war crime. I don't know what a war crime about that is, but whatever. But they give him credit. There's nothing to talk about. They said there was never an act like this done before. This is like a groundbreak. And he goes to the world and says, here. And what's the world's response? You didn't tell us anything new. I didn't tell you anything new. Nobody gave you access to all this. But that's the European mentality when it comes to the way they treat Israel and Jews. Don't confuse me with the facts. Hitler did that in the 1930s, and today the entire European Union is doing that once again. Just don't confuse me. We'll make the mayor of London a Muslim, we'll do this, everything's fine. Don't confuse me. Terrorist attacks, so what? This, so what? They're great people, they're refugees, they're victims. But the Israeli kids who are dying day in, day out, they're not victims. What they're doing is wrong. So you got a big fire fueling. Iran planted a whole lot of missiles in Israel. In Syria, directed towards Israel. Now listen to this. It gets better. You know what's happening next week? A few interesting things at once. Tuesday's May 15th. May 15th, the Muslims, Yom Zichram, call Yom HaNakba, the day of revenge, the day that they stole, quote unquote, we stole the land from them, because the Balfour Declaration was May 15th, I think, and that's a very sad day to them, because all we did was took back what they stole from us for 2,000 years. So every year I know in Nakba there's chaos in Israel. But this year we got more fun. A couple days before that, the embassy is moving to Jerusalem. And they already vowed that the whole country is going on flames as a result of that. And now you got these Iranian lunatics that are in Syria doing whatever they want, arming, as we know as of this morning, 86,000 militants that have no value for life. They'd rather be dead than alive because they have nothing to live for anyway. Which are also vowing, we're going to make it rain missiles on Israel. And all this a couple of days before Shavuot. That's my pessimism for the night. Sounds pretty gray, no? But it's not. It actually might be a good thing. Good thing. What could be good about that? It sounds kind of crazy, no? So the Minister of Security of Israel today spoke, and honestly, I don't know. He should kind of be embarrassed because his speech today was, if they're going to rain missiles on us, we'll flood them back with missiles. And he thought that was like powerful. He figured out a word that was stronger than rain. The only problem is if they rain missiles at us, I don't know if there'll be any time left to flood anything back. Let him refer back to previous wars that without open miracles we didn't succeed. Another thing that pained me greatly on a personal level was watching Netanyahu today speak about how proud he is of Tzal, and he forgot to say Be'ezrat Hashem or thank you to God even once in the whole thing for their operation last night. And maybe he should wake up and say thank you to God, because when you don't, then God says, let me remind you that I exist. But the Israelis went in last night as revenge of 20 rockets that were sent by the Iranians into Israel yesterday. And this is fascinating. These idiots sent 20 rockets into Israel. First of all, what do you think 20 rockets going to do? Out of that 20 rockets, 16 out of 20 fell in Syria at all. They hurt their own people. They're real idiots. Is that not a miracle? Is that not Hashem saying, I'm going to decide what? And the other 4 also fell in Syria, but they didn't do any harm because they were already blown up in the air by Israeli counter-missile artillery, and they didn't target anybody or anything. But the Israelis did have to retaliate, just even though nothing happened, because they had to make a point. So they sent 30 airplanes in, or warplanes in, and they bombed 16 that they're willing to admit to, but as things are leaking, it's closer to 50 different military cells of the Syrian and Assad regime in Syria last night. And did that all in 31 minutes and came out safely and peacefully, and thank God all the kids went to bed that night whole and safe and alive. So today Netanyahu is taking a lot of pride in that, but he forgot to mention God's name. That's terrible. And the reason why that's terrible is because we have something else going on in Israel that I don't know if you're aware of, that's causing a lot of damage. We had 20 rockets being shot at us, nothing. Most of them landed in Syria. But then we got another form of terrorism that we never encountered before. It's called the kite terrorists. You know what the kite terrorists are? Did you hear about this insanity? These Palestinian kids, each terrorist goes and gets himself 5 wives, brings 48 kids. They take kites, no ammunition, no training, no nothing. They don't need ISIS to train them. They don't need anything. They take kites. They tie into them fireballs in the bottom, and they send them flying over the gate into Israel. That's it. They land in Israel, they burn fields. There's already close to 100 million shekel of damage done in a matter of a couple of weeks to the Israeli economy. That's a much bigger hit than all the rockets that we've seen in many years together. What's going on here? So Iran, with all their power, can't even get a rocket across the Israeli border, and Hashem shall help, it should never happen. How does the Torah teach us happen by Egypt? They would throw arrows at the Jews, and there was a cloud that blocked them, and the arrows went and made a U-turn. That's where the whole idea of U-turn came from, and went straight back at them. Right? We even read it in Tehillim, we read it in Nach and other places as well, that their spears killed them, because when they rerouted, they went and they were perfect targets. They were laser-guided missiles straight to their hearts. They pierced right through the hearts of the guys who threw them. Abraham Avinu had a similar idea, just in the reverse way. So we see that these things have happened many, many times in Jewish history. But you know what my little parallel that I'd like to make is, and unfortunately I'm scared I'm right, even though I hope I'm wrong. Everybody here knows the story of David and Goliath. David HaMelech, he wasn't a melech, he was a little kid then. And this great giant, the giant that is defeating everybody, and the kid says he's going to take down the giant. When Chazal describe us in detail the story, Chazal go and push it to the point that they say that Goliath looked at David and he like mocked him. And he said, "What? I can squish you." He didn't even reach his ankle. He's like, "I just step on you." It's like an ant coming and telling you, "I'm going to fight with you now." And David HaMelech told him an interesting thing. He said, "Physically you're a lot stronger than me. There's no doubt about it. But I'm coming to you in the name of God that fights the wars of Israel. And in the name of God, I can defeat you." And with 5 little stones, he defeated the giant, the threat to the whole Jewish nation. And when there comes a time that the Israeli military forgets the name of God, then the Arab kids with kite bombs, 5 stones, take down our economy. And that's why it's critical to always remember, and even when we talk about these heroic things that these, and I have nothing against the IDF, I love the IDF and these kids, God should protect them and bring them all happy, healthy, and safe to their mothers. But behind all of that, there's somebody upstairs who's guiding all of this. So the Jewish nation is facing a very touchy week next week, and we hope it goes by quietly and peacefully, and we don't have to encounter any combat, because we're not fans of combat, but it definitely exists. Then we had this other incident a couple weeks ago, which unfortunately I'm sure you heard of. Kids go on a trip to the Judah desert, 25 of them, and only 15 come back. And even the 15 that come back, 9 don't even go back. They only go back to the hospitals. By now, 6 out of 9 are released. 10 die, 9 girls and 1 boy. And these are kids that were in a school or a program. It's not even a school, it's called a mechinah. That's for the elite of the elite, the best children of Israel, the wisest, the highest IQs, the best families. There's a fortune of money to join such a program. Just a little bit of an frightening or uncomfortable or weird thought is less than 20 hours before these kids lost their lives where they did, my family and I were in the same exact location. And we had asked our tour guide and said, we heard this rain in the forecast, is it dangerous? And our tour guide gave us the same answer that that tour guide gave them. Don't worry about it. We know how to deal with everything. Thank God we made it out. In our case, Baruch Hashem, Hashem helped us. During the time we were there was no rain. But how did these kids die? They didn't get lost. They didn't get shot by terrorists. It was a weird incident. Water, in a matter of under 20 seconds, there's videos of this. It's out of control. Comes and pushes a boulder, a huge boulder, and suddenly an area that was completely dry, number 1, has a water elevation, so everything becomes slippery, and you can't really keep your balance. And number 2, this huge stone, this boulder, comes rolling down at a crazy speed and just kills 10 people. Young kids, the future of the Jewish nation. This is, besides for the fact of a tragedy, there's a lot of tragedies in life. There are a lot of deaths, there are a lot of sad stories. This is already called a mitah mishuna, a weird death. And when people die weird deaths or weird things happen, that's already God saying, hey, maybe it's time to assess. That's my pessimistic segment of the night. With that, I'm done. That's pretty morbid, right? If you'd leave now, it'd be kind of depressing. So I'm going to tell you how to turn this around and make this a really happy thing. Do you believe that? Everything we just said is so sad and miserable. God forbid, I'm not saying death of anybody's happy. That's tragic, and nobody should ever know. Chazal say that a parent who buries his child goes straight to Gan Eden because their hell they already got in this world no matter what. There's no, we should never know, we should never know, we should never know. But there's no way to describe the pain of a parent that has to bury their child. But so I'm not talking about that element of it. I'm talking about all these empty threats that we have from terrorists around us and all these other things that seem to scare people. Somebody called me today, he said he's scheduled to fly to Israel on Sunday, he wants to cancel it, what do I think? I said, I think if you, instead of canceling it, you can change the ticket to my name, I'll gladly go. So I said, if there's a God, he's there in all situations, and if there's no God, he's not, you know, like, what are you doing? It's just the opposite. Hashem is going to, because you went there to Israel and did a mitzvah, that you, instead of going to some stupid place, you went to a holy place, So you're going to get hurt as a result. Now, obviously, you don't have to go to dangerous places if such a thing exists, but beyond that. So listen to this. Maran Rav Shach Zatzal assesses the whole situation and gives you the answer to the entire situation in a very, very brief idea that if you instill it within you, it really makes a difference. I'll tell you, it uplifted my mood today when I was learning this. He says like this, in Parashat Vayelech, that's in Devarim, Perek Lamed Aleph, Pasuk Yud Zayin, in case you want to look it up. The Torah says a very interesting thing. Umitza'u ra'ot, there's going to be a day that the Jews will find ra'ot, bad, rabot, a lot of bad, vitzarot, pain, problems, however you want to call it. V'amar bayom ahu, and he'll say on that day, Halo ki en Elokai b'kirbi, because God is not dwelling amongst me, mitza'uni ha'ra'ot ha'ele. These bad things happen to me. So Rav Shach asks a very obvious question. He says the pasuk started off with 3 different titles: tzarot, ra'ot, rabot, vitzarot. Bad, a lot of it, meaning a double down of bad, and tzarot. When the pasuk concludes, the pasuk eliminates the tzarot and eliminates the rabot and just leaves it with one word, ra'ot. All right, let's read it again, just so you understand. Ra'ot, rabot, vitzarot, 3 different things. Ve'amar, and as a result, the Jews will say, Bayom ahu, halo ki ein Elokai b'kirbi, because God's not amongst me. Mitza'uni, came upon me. Hara'ot ha'ele, it should have said, Hara'ot, rabot, vitzarot ha'ele. You don't start with one thing and end with the other thing, and end with less. What's going on? This was Maran Rav Shach Zatzal's question that he used to repeat a lot in his speeches. In order to appreciate the depth of the answer that he gives, I want to quote to you something that I've quoted by heart in the past as a result of hearing this, but I never knew he wrote it. And then through this sefer, I actually found out that he not only spoke it, he actually wrote it in his own handwriting. This is amazing. It was Rav Shach's most famous sefer. This is just to understand this. Avi Ezri. Rav Shach wrote a set of Sfarim on the Rambam, a commentary on the Rambam, Maimonides. Very deep set of Sfarim. And it's utilized on an hourly basis in all the yeshivot in the entire world. It's amazing how some Sfarim, Hashem Gesiyatad Shmaya, and they just become the mainstream sefer of a commentary on the Rambam. So he was even titled, if you look at the picture of his grave, it's called Baal Avi Ezri, the one who wrote Avi Ezri. That was like the legacy. All right, so now listen to this. I'm quoting to you word for what he wrote, and it's in Hebrew, so obviously I'll translate and see if we can absorb this for a second. Rav Shach writes about himself. Lo hayali afilu yom tov echad b'chayai. I never even had one good day in my entire life. Lo ta'amti, I didn't taste afilu kol tov, even a drop, an iota, me'ha'olam hazeh, from this world. Ubechol zot, and with all of that, here's a person saying, I never had one good day in my life. Ani achol la'id al atzmi, I can testify on myself, on myself. Miyalduti ve'ad hayom hazeh, from when I was a child until this very day. Ani ha'adam hachi me'ushar ba'olam. I am the happiest person alive in the world. He never had a good day. That's what he says about himself. He never had a drop of materialism. He never had any pleasure from anything materialistic. And he's testifying about himself. I can say about myself, Ani Adam Achi, not Ani Adam Meushar. Ani Adam Hachi Meushar Ba'olam. I am the most happy person alive in the world. Now he goes on, he's not done yet. Listen to these words. It's mind-boggling. Chaverai la'yeshiva, my friends that learned with me in the yeshiva, zachu b'shiduchim ashirim. They merited to get married to rich girls. Then to get married to a rich girl was a very big deal because that meant you'd be able to stay in learning. Otherwise you wouldn't be able to stay in learning. It's like today, the girls want rich boys, so they have deal, they could stay in the mall. Same idea. Just the wrong place. Technicality. Yeah, it's called today's marriages are called a workshop. The husband works, the wife shops all day, and everything's beautiful. You never knew that? So Rav Shach writes, Chaverai la'yeshiva, my friends to the yeshiva, zachu b'shiduchim ashirim. They got married to rich girls, right? That was called making it. But then, in Lashon HaKodesh, there's two words that are pronounced the same, but they have one different letter. Osher and Oshel. There's other words like that as well, by the way, but that's the most known ones. Osher, wealth, is spelled with an ayin, and happiness, Oshel, is spelled with an aleph. You know why? Because ayin is all the way towards the end of the alphabet. If you're wealthy or not, it's a nice thing. God should help. All Jews in the world that do the right thing with their money should be wealthy. But, and if you're not, but if you're not happy, you don't have the aleph. You have no starting point. You got zero. So he says, they merited b'shiduchim ashirim, with an ayin, wealthy shiduchim, ach lo hayu me'usharim, but they weren't happy with an aleph. Rak ani misken, just me, the nebuch. See, Rav Shach writing about himself. You know what misken means? Like the fifth class citizen. Sheme'olam lo haya li olam hazeh, that I never had anything from this world. I never had anything. Ani achi mu'ushar, I'm the one who ended up being the happiest. And he's saying that in puzzlement. Umadua, and why? Rav Shach wasn't stingy. He shared the secret with everybody. Hasiba achat v'yechida. The reason is one and only one. Mishum she'ani lomed Torah. Because I study Torah. Here's a man who lived at least 107 years. And I know others say less, but it's just wrong. And we just know who grew up with him when, and it has to be that way. And he testifies about himself. He never had a happy day. I think on Rav Shach's Yortzeit I shared that I had the merit to hear this from him, live. That was the way he kept me in yeshiva when I was a young boy and wanted to leave. And then he told me all the details. His poverty was so bad that he owned only one shirt. I must have said this over in classes around the world and here hundreds, thousands of times by now for sure. And every time I'm puzzled with it again. Because I remember complaining 2 days ago when I was in the hospital overnight and I had to stay there in the morning. And I was a patient taking care of patients, but it doesn't make a difference. They're Jews, so it's the same thing. That my shirt, I don't have a new shirt because I didn't think I'd be there overnight. And then I thought, it just took me 3 seconds for it to come back to me, though, Shiva telling me that he went 6 months straight without changing his shirt. At a certain point he decided it's not respect for Shabbat. So on Friday he would go down to the river, there was no washing machines, and he would wash it in the river. So at least in honor of Shabbat it should be washed. But there was no dryers either. And this was the cold of Lithuania in the winter. So he'd put it back on and it would freeze on him. So now he had ice. Even his body heat wasn't warm enough to keep it wet. And not only wasn't that a problem to him, he saw in that a blessing. And the blessing was that Thursday night in the Olam HaYeshivot, they had accustomed to stay up all night and learn. So he said, naturally, Friday, a lot of us would get tired when we'd learn and we'd fall asleep. He said, because I had this shirt that was frozen on me, it would keep me awake. So I didn't fall asleep when my friends fell asleep, so I did better than them. Is that turning lemons into lemonade or what? Is that an outlook on life or what? And then he concluded that segment when he told this to me and he said, and you know how it ended up drying? He said at a certain point, my learning heated up so much that the fire of learning was my dryer. It dried my shirt. Till the next week when the cycle started all over again. He didn't have a blanket. There was no heat in the yeshiva. We're not talking about by us when it becomes 40 degrees. Everybody's like, oh, it's freezing, I can't handle it. This is Lithuania. We're talking 30 below zero on a good night. No blanket, no heat. After a few years that he was in the yeshiva, a woman gave him a used coat of her husband that passed away. And he used that coat as his blanket at night when he would lay on a bench to doze off a bit. And now listen to what it means to remember a favor and not to forget people who helped you in life. Over 70 years later, this lady died in Israel. Rav Shach knew that she died, and he went from Bnei Brak to Petach Tikva to attend her funeral. Because that was his only way of repaying the favor that she gave him, a used coat that was a men's coat that she had nothing to do with after her husband died 70 years earlier. That means for 70 years straight, he kept track of where in the world this woman is, to one day be able to pay her that favor back, chesed shel emet. And not only did he attend the funeral, he actually spoke by the funeral. And when he spoke by the funeral, he said that he doesn't know if he ever learned Torah in his life. But if he did, it was all in her merit. Because if not for that code, who knows if he would have been able to learn, or if he would have survived those cold winters. Now imagine how many swarms of angels were waiting to greet this lady when she came up to Gan Eden. I wouldn't mind switching seats with her. The one that Rav Shach goes and credits just like that for his learning. He says, who knows if I would have ever been in. You know what that means? Today people do us the biggest favors in the world, and a day later we forget it, or even worse, we backstab them. A coat, a used coat. It's a hand-me-down. A hand-me-down there's nothing to do with. For 70 years to keep track of where the person is around the world, and to attend their funeral and by the time he attended the funeral, he was ready to Gdol Ado. So Rabban Shel Kol Bnei HaGolah, the great Torah giant, who's not a youngster, goes and attends this woman's funeral. It was actually a little over 70 years later. Mind-boggling. But anyway, ani amushal sheba'adam. Why? Ki ani lomed Torah, because I learned Torah. Okay, so a lot of us are going to say to that, we heard that story before, we try to learn, not only doesn't learning make us happy, just the opposite, it annoys us, we don't know how to learn, we don't connect with the Gemara, it's so hard, it's this, it's that. Girls will say I'm not obligated in learning, so for sure it doesn't apply to me, and it seems like we just didn't get anywhere. Okay, so let's try and understand the depth behind those words, and we're going to use Rav Shach's philosophy himself to explain his own words. Comes Rav Shach and says, let's differentiate between ra'ot, things that hurt, that are bad, or that seem bad at least, to tzarot. Lichora, it seems to be that tzarot and ra'ot, maybe they have different translations. Literally, I don't know what article translates them as, but they're more or less the same thing. Kol kach ra li, o yesh li harbe tzarot. So, when somebody has a lot of problems, so they say, ra li, I'm having a hard time, or vice versa. But in the Torah, there are no two words that are the same, and every word has a world of its own inside of it. So, the shoresh of the word tzarot is two letters, tsar, narrow. And if you look in the Torah, in the Targum Onkelos, it's a translation of the Torah, the Targum writes that what's tzarot? V'akan, that a person feels locked in, caged in. I don't know what to do anymore, right? That's the normal response to having a tough day. I don't know what to do anymore. Nothing's working out for me. Sometimes a person's cornered. Life corners him. That's called tzarot. It doesn't make a difference why. It doesn't make a difference what. A 3-year-old because his mom doesn't let him have a lollipop at 8 o'clock at night when he should have been sleeping 2 hours ago. And a 30-year-old because he doesn't have the car he wants, or he didn't get into the school he wanted to, or whatever else, to each his own. And then there's something else. There's ra'ot. Ra'ot are actual problems, are things that are be'etzim, a serious problem. We should never know, but there's way too many stories like this of people that aren't well. They're even terminally ill. This is to Sonei Yisrael right away. That would be an easy solution to all the Iranian rockets. Let all their operators just die, and we'll solve the problem that way. You can export from the US and from Israel cancer to Iran. It would help a lot right now. And I'm saying that because today in Iran I don't think there are any Jews left, so that's not, but if not, I mean to the terrorists of Iran. It would help a lot of people. So ra'ot is something that's be'etzim, a problem. Meaning, tzarot is the way we feel as a result of a problem. Ra'ot is the problem itself. Rabot is just a term of having a lot or a little. Some people have one minute issue that day, and others have 500 things. In English we say when it rains it pours. Normally when problems start, they continue. But believe it or not, it's not because it has to be that way. It's because when a person runs into his first obstacle of the day, normally his mood gets very gray, and from there his decision-making process and way to deal with things gets even grayer, and obviously the rest of the day is going to be hell. But it doesn't have to be that way. That's already a choice. That's like mitzvah goreret mitzvah, avera goreret avera. Sometimes we choose to let the day continue that way. Comes Rav Shach and writes an unbelievable thing. Let's go to a chapter, Tehillim, that I bet everything I have that everybody here knows by heart. Chapter 23 in Tehillim, the second pasuk. The pasuk says, Gam ki elech begeitz al mavet, Even when I walk through the valley of death, lo ira ra, I don't fear bad. Why? Ki ata imadi, because you, God, are with me. Another example of a pasuk, v'kovei Hashem yachalifu koach. Those who yearn for God, they'll get renewed strength. And there are many examples of like that of psukim that all have the same theme. So now I want to make a little bit of an observation, see if you work with me on this one. This is not my observation, this is Rav Shach's observation. He says the pasuk begins and says, umitzau ra'ot. The person has problems, part 1. Rabot, it seems like a lot of them. It started by 1 and it multiplied. Vitzarot, and as a result he feels depressed, down, caged in. What am I going to do with myself? I can't handle this. But then he continues and thinks, why is this happening to me? So when we think why, we normally say why. Hashem Yirachem, our response is. But when a Jew, Yirei Shamayim, thinks why, so he has an answer. Haloki en Elokai bikirbi mitzauni haraot ha'ele. So the simple understanding is that it means because God abandoned me, He left me. But God never leaves a Jew. God's with you all the time. He's everywhere all the time. So what does it mean? Haloki ein Elokai bikirbi. Kilbi is in my kavai, my kishkas, they say in Yiddish. Because I don't let Hashem dwell inside of me, in my heart, to be in me. That I don't feel God with me. That's why mitzauni haraot ha'ele. But the second I identify that there is a God, and that God's with me, so it's true that I have a problem, but it's not a tzara anymore, and it doesn't multiply itself, because I put an end to it at the first one. Because the problem and the good comes from the same place. But wait, that still doesn't help, because we like pleasant things in life. If somebody's, I don't know, at least, well, it depends who. If you're a gym freak, so this is a bad example, so I don't know if I should give this one. If somebody was offered to eat fast food or a gourmet meal, I would hope they would choose a gourmet meal. And if somebody was offered to fast or to eat a gourmet meal, I would definitely hope that they would choose a gourmet meal. So I wasn't given a choice if I should have a hard day today or not, or if a problem should hit me today or not. So what's my attitude supposed to be when it does hit, or when the first part of it hits? So here we got to take it further. Comes Rav Shach and writes an unbelievable thing. Rav Shach, as you know, went through the world wars and suffered through them. World War I especially, that's what he spoke about more, and the rise of Hitler. And he retold an amazing story. Shach wasn't a person who retold many stories, by the way. He did from Chaim Oizer a little bit on that, but in general, he wasn't that big to talk about stories. But there was one that he retold. I'm just looking for a few details to make sure I get it right. I remember hearing this, not live, but on recording. He said it in Yad Eliyahu, I think it was. But here they wrote it word for word. They transcribed it from that speech. This is an amazing thing. He said it was during World War II, and there was a group of Jews that were being led by the Germans, Yom Shemam Hashem Zichram, to the gas chambers. Surrounding them, and this is the way Rav Shach described it, he said there were dogs on 4 and dogs on 2. It's pretty harsh for Rav Shach to say, but not harsh because that's the right thing to title those people. Or I don't call them people, those mammals. But that's what he described it in the speech. This was in front of thousands of people and it was broadcasted on many television outlets. And he said, and these Jews are in the middle of them, and they're being led to their death, and they're not stupid. They know that 30,000 people the day before died in the same place, so their fate is going to be no different. And suddenly one man turns to the rest of the group of Jews, and he tells them, my dear friends, I just calculated the Hebrew dates in my mind, and I figured something out. Today is Simchat Torah, the day that we dance and happy with the Torah. And then he turns and he tells them like this, I'm going to quote the words that Rav Shach said in the speech, word for word as it was transcribed. Omnam ein lanu sefer Torah lirkod imo. It's true that we don't have a sefer Torah to dance with, as we do in our synagogues. Va'afilu lo chumash. We don't even have a chumash to dance with. Or sidur, or a prayer book. Oto nuchal le'ametz el libeinu, that we can hold close to our hearts when we dance. Aval davar echad yesh lanu. But one thing we do have, V'ish lo yuchal litol meitanu, and nobody can take it away from us. יש לנו את הריבונו של עולם בכבודו ובעצמו. We have God himself with us. הוא נמצא איתנו בכל רגע. He's with us at every given moment. ועמו אנו יכולים לרקוד. And with him, we can now still dance. And then Rav Shach said, and listen to what happened. This gentleman turned to his friends and said, "V'chein hava Yehudim ikarim." Please, my dear friends, cherished Jews, neitzei b'rikud, let's start dancing im haribono shel olam, together with Borei Olam, with the Master of the world. And these Jews started dancing in the middle of the Nazis, Yimach Shemam v'Shem Zichram, and their dogs. And they couldn't believe it. I just couldn't believe it. What? You're going to your death and you're dancing? When Rav Shach said this, he had a mission. He continued. His words were, after this story, my beloved Jews, you know how much the Jews suffered throughout the generations? Almost 2,000 years of exile. He said, but what kept us going throughout all that time? What kept the nation that's always been the outcast, that's always been the one who was tortured, that's always been the persecuted one, to be able to survive, to stand, and to stay strong? And not only that, and to rebuild over and over again from ash to glory. רק האמונה באלוקים חיים ובתורת הנצח. Only the faith in God and in the Holy Torah. היא שהחזיקה אותנו וחיזקה את ליבנו. That's what held us and kept our hearts strong. And now listen to this. And when I read these words earlier today, I was in the car, sitting on the side of the road here, and I was reading this, and this was probably the biggest dagger of Musar I ever got in my life. It's all transcribed from the same speech. He said, Rabotai, אני מקנא באותם יהודים. I'm jealous of those Jews who died in that story on Simchat Torah in Auschwitz. הלוואי שהייתי זוכה לרגע אחד של קרבת אלוקים כדוגמת זו לה הם זכו באותו ריקוד מרומם עם הריבונו של עולם. הלוואי in my life I should feel for even 1 second that closeness to God that they felt during that last dance together with God before they were taken to death. האם תיתכן הנאה גדולה מזו? Is it even possible to think that there's any greater pleasure in the world than this? הנמצא תענוג גדול מזה? Another variation of pleasure. אדרבה, just the opposite. אם יודע מאן דהוא המציאותה של הנאה גדולה מזו, יעלה ויעמוד כאן על הבימה וישמיענה. That was very Rav Shach type to say. If anybody thinks there's anything more pleasurable than that given moment that those people had, he should get up right now to the stage and share it with us. Tell us what can be more pleasurable than that. הרי זה נקרא לחיות חיי עולם הבא בעולם הזה. When Rav Shach wanted to describe in a speech to over 10,000 people that were there live, and to Am Yisrael for its generations forever, what's his concept of something that's paradise? His concept of paradise, the highest level of pleasure that one can obtain, is Jews that are a few seconds before their death and are dancing together with the Ribono Shel Olam on Simchat Torah. And here we ask ourselves, Rav Shach was an intelligent man. That doesn't sound right. Wouldn't we all rather live? And if somebody doesn't, they should please go get help. The day you lose your desire to live is a very sad moment. And it's a moment that you need professional help, and I mean that very seriously. And I'm saying that with a lot of care and love as well. I don't judge people that lose their interest in life. But the desire to live should be the foundation of everything. And it almost sounds like a suicide speech. The greatest pleasure was the pleasure that those people had at that moment. And there's a lot to understand and take into consideration here. I'm going to share with you a second part to this speech that wasn't said, the reaction to the speech. At the time that this speech was given, there was a great, great rabbi who at that point lived in Cleveland, but before he lived other places, he was the Rosh Yeshiva, tells Rav Mordechai Gifter. Zecher Tzadik v'Kadosh Levacha Zchuto Yagen Aleinu. Rav Mordechai Gifter wrote a letter as soon as he heard the recording of this speech that Rav Shach gave to Rav Shach. They were very close. They had a very close friendship. And he said, I heard the story that you said over, and I want to add on to what you said, a story of my own. And this is what he writes to Rav Shach. He said, when the community of Telz, led by the great Rabbi Rav Avraham Yitzchak Bloch, Hashem Minkon Damo B'meira Le'nei Kol Am Yisrael, the great Rosh Yeshiva of Telz, were taken out to death. The Nazis, Yimach Shemam V'Shem Zichram, stood the entire community near a big pit, which they were going to bury them alive in, and that's what they ended up doing right after. And right before they buried these Jews alive, one of these lowlifes, one of these SS officers, with a smirk on his face, in a fluent German, comes to the rabbi who spoke German as well, and told him, and I'm not going to say the words in German, we'll save you the time, and he says, "New rabbi, where's your God?" And he points to the pit. Tough, no? How many times in our day do we feel, where's God? Where'd he go? I just got a traffic ticket. Why? Where was he? This guy was at these Kedoshei Elyon, at the lip of a pit that they were later on buried alive in a few minutes after this story. And he turned to him back and answered him in his own language. God is not only my God. He said, where's your God? God is also your God. And very shortly, the entire world will see it. And those were his last words before he was buried. Remember that for life. God is not only my God, he's also your God. He's all of our God, all of mankind, the entire universe, and everything in between. And he's behind every step of the way for everybody and everything. And now let's go back to the Osho, to the great pleasure that Rav Shach says. He says, how do we title this pleasure? What's the pleasure in this? And Rav Shach answered that question years later in another speech that he gave. And over there he spoke a lot about these 6 million Kedoshei Elyon tzaddikim that died al Kiddush Hashem in World War II. And in that speech, he said, many people ask, we're the chosen nation. We say in the prayer, Ata bechartanu mikol ha'amim. Chosen for what? To be murdered? 6 million of us in one shot in the course of a few years? That's not called being chosen. V'romamtanu, and you elevated us mikol ha'lishonot, from all the nations of the world. We weren't elevated, we were persecuted time after time. We were murdered. Ki alecha horagnu kol hayom. We were constantly killed throughout history. Situation after situation, the Jewish nation knew suffering. So where's the Romamtanu? There's no Romamtanu. It looks like we're the dust under the nations of the world's feet. There's no Romamtanu. And Rav Shach answered this with his simple logic, with one sharp line. He said, if you have to choose to be on the side of the murderers or on the side of the murdered, which one makes you a better person? And he said he guarantees that if you would go to all 6 million Jews that died in World War II and do it all over again and ask them, do you want to be a Nazi? And you'll be saved, but you'll have to kill. Or do you want to get killed? And that's it, it's over. They'll choose by choice to be killed. Because to be an ethical person, to be a person who lives with meaning and reason and purpose and is not evil and doesn't harm others, is a much greater value than anything else in the world. So yeah, there is a choice, a healthy choice of death, to be on the side of those who are murdered. Comes Rav Shach and says, Ata bechartanu, Borei Olam chose us because he knew that us as a nation, we won't fall into the trap to say we want to be the murderers. We want to be the aggressive ones. We're not aggressive people. Because he knows that we'll choose to deal with our fate as it is and accept it without trying to fight it and uprise. And how are we going to do that? Halo ki en Elokai b'kirbi. The second we identify that Elokai, if I put Hashem b'kirbi inside of me, so Ra'ot still stay. There's no magic. There'll be problems in life. There's a wonderful movement of people that learn about Emunah every day, and I'm very pro. I love it. It's amazing. But I just have one big issue with the old way that people did it. Baruch Hashem, I see it's changing drastically in the past few months. That when Emunah stories all go with these amazing miracles and happy endings, that's destroying a nation. Because that's making the youth be atheists one day. Because what happens when they walk into shul and pray and it doesn't work? What happens when somebody reads 500 Sifrei Tehillim in their life and God still answers no? Ve'emunatcha, what does emunah mean? Baleilot, when you don't get the yes as an answer. When you get the yes as an answer, it's time, you got lucky, you got an ace. That's not emunah, that's a no-brainer. To smile when you get your way, that's very easy. To smile when nothing's working your way, that means you're a Bal Emunah. That means Elokai b'kirbi, without the in before it in the pasuk. That God is actually inside of me. If we take God and put him inside of me, so Ra'ot stay. I'm not telling you the fairy tale that you're going to go read Tehillim tomorrow and boom, everything's going to be perfect. No, it's not going to be like that. And in case you want living evidence to that, my three main missions in life, first and foremost, is to love Hashem and love his kids. There's nothing more important to me than that. And after that, it's to put love not in theory, but into practice. And the way you put love into practice is you sacrifice yourself for the sake of others. I was blessed to do this in two areas, other than speaking and whatever. And that was in the medical world, by doing medical referrals and other things. And I hope you never need to know what that means or utilize any of my services in any ways. And in the charity world, by running one of the largest undercover charity operations that exist in the Jewish community for sure, could be even slowly in the world, helping tens of thousands. And I can tell you from first-hand testimony that tonight, well, by now it's 7 hours behind this tonight statement, in Israel tonight, there were at least 60,000 Orthodox kids that I'm aware of that went to sleep hungry because there was nothing in their fridge. And that's, I wish I was exaggerating. That's a very low number. I'm assuming it's a lot higher than that. We recently opened another soup kitchen in Israel that's geared to children. The criteria of a child is under the age of 14. We serve 800 meals 3 times a day there. You know what it takes for a kid to come and say he needs a meal? How embarrassing, humiliating that is for him? If he's willing to do that, you know how long he didn't have a meal before that? And you know how many kids, they tell me that they have to prepare between 3,000 and 5,000 meals 3 times a day. Because you know how many of these children come and ask, can I take home a portion for my mother too? You know what it takes for a child to have to turn to somebody and say, my mom didn't eat, can you please let me take some food home? So now with every portion that they give a boy or a girl, they have a care package to go in case he asks for one. And care packages in different sizes, because if it's a large family, you better be able to feed them all. Now guess what? A lot of the parents of these kids are people that sit and study Torah for many, many hours a day. Not 1, not 2, not 5, not 10. It's not the luxurious American Kola lifestyle. Not that I'm bashing it. It's beautiful that we still have people here that learn in Kola. That you learn in Kola and drive a 2018 car. No. These are people that walk to Kola and don't even take the bus because they can't afford the $1 the bus costs. How many families there are like that? You want to start with where's God? Where's God with all this? You know where he is? He's sitting in heaven and glowing in pride and saying, look at my children. It's like the idiot who comes to God one day and tells him, let me win the Mega Millions, and if I win the Mega Millions, I promise I'll give charity and I'll go to learn in Kolo. And God tells him, I have 159,000 people doing that in Israel for 80 shekel a week, or 100 shekel a week. Why do I have to give you $233 million? Yeah, this is the beauty of the Jewish nation. But how do these people have the strength to do it? Why don't they wake up one day and say, enough, I can't go to sleep hungry. I can't. This is not a life that I want. This is not a life that I chose. I'm switching it with a different life. You know why? Because because these are the happy people of the world. Because Elokai b'kirbi, it's true ra'ot, it's true many nights they go to sleep without food. It's true many days they don't know if they'll have heat or electricity because it was shut off and they have no clue where they'll get the money for it to get it turned back on. I wish there'll be a day that this will be one big exaggeration. I wish. I pray every day for that day. But unfortunately, this is an evil reality that I see every day. Especially every day that I'm in Israel, because that's where I'm involved most. But they're happy. So they don't have the osher with the ayin. And ayin resembles eye. They're not looking at the other person. Imagine all of us were billionaires, like the whole world. You know what would be cool at that point? To be poor. The only reason why today we want to be rich is because the other person doesn't have. But if everybody has, then it'll be cool to be poor. It'll be different. And the liberals will turn it into a trend. Live without nothing. They'll come up with some sort of slogan, and boom, it'll work. They can come up with anything. Any sick thing in the world they can justify. They have no end. Live without this, live without that. Hamushal sheba adam is Elokai b'kirbi. It's I'm from the murdered, I'm not from the murderers. I turned to a kol guy when I was there like Bomer in Bnei Brak in a shtibel that we were praying minchayin, that it was very obvious on his suit or his suit jacket and his hat that he definitely didn't get one in 15 years, if not more. There wasn't much left to either one of them. It started as black. By now it went from black to gray, from gray to brown, from brown to green. And I asked him, because I couldn't control myself. I actually, Hashem should forgive me, this was probably wrong al pi halacha, but I stepped out of the prayer to catch him in the hallway. That's how much this question irked me. I said, isn't there a point that we say, Ad Khan, now maybe I could go get a job or something, or do something on the side, just to once in 15 years buy a hat? He told me, I'm not missing anything. There's nothing else I want. Why would I work for things I don't want? And I can tell you, I'm not a jealous person. I don't think there was ever a moment in my life I was jealous of anybody in the world. And that day I was. Like, what? You're not missing anything? You know how many times we come to poverty-stricken homes to better the entire situation, because I don't believe in these patches of, okay, we'll give you food for one day, because that doesn't really do much. It's great, but I like solving problems. And parents and kids tell me in their own words, you don't need it. Give it to somebody else who needs it. And they give me a name and address of somebody else. I'm like, what? You don't need it? You don't have light. Your electricity was shut off. And they answer me, the Chazon Ish also didn't use light on Shabbat. In the most simplistic way. We should never know, but imagine your lights were shut off because you couldn't pay an electric bill. You'd be depressed is an understatement, and rightfully so, because your friends love you. They would right away put together money and pay off your debts and do whatever they can to make sure you can get back on your feet. I would hope they would do that. And if not, you're pretty lonely. You don't have friends. Friends are not the people that send you text messages with hearts. Those are your enemies, actually, normally in life. Friends are the people that are willing to actually make an effort and dip their hands in their pocket and help somebody else out. But if a guy like that can stand in a shtibel in Bnei Brak, he doesn't know me, I don't know him, it's the first time we ever met. You know what else I realized in that conversation, which really made me feel very small? He looked at me with pity. He felt bad for me that I was even asking him that question. He thought something was wrong with me. He literally looked at me with pity. So who's looking at who with pity? The nirtzach, in quotations. The one who has nothing is looking at the one who has everything. Saying, I pity you. I don't need anything. I'm happy. Well, why would you even give me more? I don't want it. It's okay just the way it is. Hamushal Shabada. So does he have ra'ot? Does he have hard days? I'm sure he does. I don't know. I didn't ask him. Because at that point I was so shaken up that I didn't even have the guts to continue asking anything else because I knew I couldn't handle it. I can only imagine what other answers I would have gotten that day. But, so he's the nirtzach. But he's the happy one. He's the mushal Shabbat. Because Elokai b'kirbi. And now I go back to where we started from. Even though I have a lot more to say on the topic, it'll have to happen some other time. Due to multiple time constraints, you guys having to get home and me having to get home as well. It wouldn't be a bad idea. When Avshach said those words, sorry that I'm flipping pages, I just words like this, you got to quote word for word as you said them and not change even a letter. When Rav Shach said those amazing words that we started off, and he said, I didn't have even one drop from this world, and I'm skipping, we quoted it before, and then he said, the reason why I'm happy is because Mishum Shani Lomed Torah. Ani Lomed Torah doesn't only mean learning Torah, because many of us say, as we said, I try to learn, it doesn't work out so well. You know what Lomed Torah means? Because when I open up a Gemara, what I see in the Gemara is not the letters that I may or may not understand. It's not that I don't know Hebrew well, or why didn't my parents teach me, or it's so hard for me to learn, or I'm not interested right now. It's I see God's word inside the book. So now I have God right opposite me, sitting together with me. I have Elokai b'kirbi. And when I have Elokai b'kirbi, so there is no tzarot. There could be raot, but there is no tzarot. Doesn't exist. I end up with a story. My uncle, Rav Nissim Yagen, Zechat Tzadik V'Kadosh Livracha. It's been a lot of years already, wow. I think it's going to be the 18th yahrzeit now. Yeah, a week after Shavuot, 2 weeks from now. Anyway, so when he was in Sloan Kettering, no Jew should ever need to know what that place is anymore. And honestly, not even as a doctor, because even to work in such a place is so morbid. And he was there for months, sometimes months at a time. And one time a great tzaddik, who also passed away after him, but Rav Chaim Brim, Zechat Tzadik V'Kadosh Livracha, who was the one who created Rav Nissim Yagen. He was the one who sent him to Rav Aaron Kotler to learn out of the army. Was in America because he used to be the chazan, the Baal Tfilah, Rosh Hashanah Kippur in Skver, near Monsey, in the Chassidut Skver. So he used to come to America for those 10 days every year. And during Aseret Yimei Tshuva, he went to visit my uncle's Zitzel. And he walked into the room, and Rav Nissim had terrible, terrible pain and suffering. There's no way to describe what pain he was in. And Rav Chaim Brim also came at a very bad time. It was one of his worst days, pain-wise. And he couldn't talk, he couldn't move, he couldn't anything. The pain was beyond. They were pumping morphine through his vein like as if it was water. In milligram doses that I don't even know how it's legal to even do such things, but they just pitied him. They wanted to get him out of pain at any cost. And Rav Chaim Brim walked into the room, and he looks at my uncle and he says, Rav Nissim, ve'emunatcha ba'leilot, emunah is exactly now. You know what I think we should do? We should start dancing. He can't talk, he can't move, what dance? And Rav Chaim Brim sits down on the bed near him and helps him up and sits him up and gets him to stand in the middle of the room with his wife, Rav Nissim's wife, who also passed away recently, sitting on the side crying at what's going on and frightened too, because the man looked like he was going to collapse any second. Starting dancing with him over there in the hospital room, and they were singing a song. Rav Chaim Brim had a beautiful, beautiful voice, and he was extremely musical. Chazdei Hashem ki lo tamu ki lo chalu rachamav. The mercy of God has no bounds. There's no end. And this didn't go on for 30 seconds or for 10 seconds. This went on for over 12 minutes. And in that time, there was an audience. It was like a stadium. Doctor after doctor, nurse after nurse were coming to the door, standing, fighting for a spot or somewhere that they can peek inside, even though that's so inappropriate for a medical staff to do, to watch this scene that they later on retold they've never seen in their life. A man who 12 minutes ago was in such pain that all the morphine they were giving him wasn't doing a thing. With the words of Emunah, with Elokai b'kirbi, somebody coming and instilling in him a little chizuk in Emunah that he knew well, but sometimes you need that extra boost, can turn around and dance and say the kindness and the mercy of God has no bounds. That doesn't fit into the rules of medicine. That doesn't have a natural explanation. Holding a little bit over a week before Shavuot, our Achana for Matan Torah has to be on 3 different parts. The part that we spoke about last week, if you didn't hear it, go on to one of these places that it's posted. I don't even want to say the names, and listen to it. What we're saying tonight, allowing and instilling God as an active participant into our life. And the third part, which I would love to say next week, but it'll be too late by then, is what we say before every holiday, is to make an active effort to physically partake in making sure that every Torah scholar has a way to make his holiday in a respectful way, without debt, without worry, and without concern, and in a time-efficient manner. Now the Rambam, and I don't know why I didn't think of this in all these years. I wish I would have. It's such a simple idea, but I think it's so smart. And I was blessed to get the Haskama of many Gdolei Israel for this. Not only the Haskama, the encouragement. The Rambam writes that what's the highest level of charity possible to give? So we know what it says in the Gemara, that if the giver doesn't know who the recipient is, and the recipient doesn't know who the giver is, that's the highest level of charity. Because that's 100% L'Shem Shamayim, and there's nobody getting embarrassed along the way. The Rambam writes there's even a higher level. And that's to allow somebody to sustain himself. Meaning if you employ somebody, if you give somebody a job or help somebody find a job or whatever, you allow them to earn their own money, so then they make that money with comfort. Now we're not going to go teach Kol guys to make money. I have no interest in that. Unless they want to leave on their own, so then at that point, sure, I have an interest in it, I'll help them. But as long as they want to learn, I want to make sure they're learning. So that doesn't apply. So how do we get this high level of charity with Torah sages? And I found a simple solution. We hire them for a spiritual service. So I started a network, and it's amazing what's going on. Just this is a revolution, and all of this started less than 48 hours ago, I think. That we go to places that we know that there are people in need, and we have people that are volunteering doing this in Israel. There are Torah sages on their own merit, and they offer them a deal. They don't come to them and say, we want to help you out, we want to support you, then the guy feels uncomfortable. They say, we have a boy or a girl or a man or a woman in the US, whatever it is, and there's none of us who aren't in need of something, and we need your prayers and the merits of your Torah to help them. We'll pay you X amount of shekels a day for the next 10 days. In our case, we're doing 100 shekel a day for 10 days, which would be 1,000 shekel, about $260, plus whatever we subsidize out of our own pockets, my friends and I. And for 10 days straight, every time you pray, every time you read Tehillim, every time you learn, you mention this person's name, L'Fuah L'Atzlacha. Now, I don't doubt I'll have countless miracle stories a day after Shavuot, but I promise not to share them with you, or bli neder, unless I get, because I'm not into that fake marketing of do this because of that. No. We help people because that's the right thing to do, period. If it happens to be that there's a side perk, no, so be it. It irks me when I see these magazines of, this miracle happened and that miracle. That's not the reason why we give charity. When it comes to sick people, it's different. The Gemara does say, if somebody says that he's going to give money to charity because of his son is sick, Neder Gadol Nadal Elokei Yisrael has great value in Shemayim. But in general, not with illness, I don't know, tit for tat, I'm not into that style. There's nothing wrong if we'll have a little L'Shem Shamayim in our life. But this is an amazing thing. So now these people get their money respectfully. Not only that, I don't know for sure, I wouldn't promise it, but I'm assuming I know the way these people are, because a lot of them I know personally. Not a lot, but many. And they're good people, so they're going to continue probably praying for that person. And now we gave somebody a living respectfully, or at least a holiday respectfully, and we did it in a way that the Rambam says is the highest way of doing things. And that's another preparation for Shavuot, because I don't know about you. Maybe all of you learn all day. I don't think so based on what I know, but maybe. I want to give you the benefit of the doubt. I know I don't have the privilege to learn all day. And we're coming to Shavuot and we're saying, God, give us the Torah for what? Not to look at it? To see it once a week for an hour on Thursday? It's almost a comical request. But when we come to God and say, give us the Torah, because we're actually part of the Torah, and we actually partake in the Torah in a serious way, and if we can't learn ourselves, at least we make sure that Torah expands in Am Yisrael in a great way, that's unbelievably important. And I'm going to say words that Hashem should help that I'm right. That I don't doubt that this is a greater mitzvah than all the other campaigns that we hear all day about. But there's no end to campaigns that we hear. And many of them are great, and many of them are good causes and very important and beautiful and everything. But I don't know how much value they have in Shemayim. Because the tsar that Hashem has to see the tsar of these kids, Tinokot Shel Beit Rabban, when they don't have their next meal, is so great that's greater than everything. And that outweighs everything. And each one in his own way should find a way to make sure that his neighbors, his friends, especially those that are Torah sages, have a holiday, have it done right, have it done respectfully. And then you can come into Shavuot and say, God, maybe I don't learn so much. Maybe I'm not so religious myself. Not that you shouldn't be, you should be, but in theory, maybe, but at least I try. And if I can't do something myself because I have my own Yetzirah, at least I allow others to do it. At least I show that I'm still part of the club. Sometimes you go to a golf club and you want to go into play and they don't let you. Why? Because you're not a member. But if you're a member, even if you didn't come play for a year, as long as you paid your dues, whenever you do want to come, you're welcome in. You have your membership. I have AAA. When I get AAA every year, I pray I should never need it. I want this money to go to waste, just like all my insurance money in life. I hope it always goes to waste. My life insurance too. I want to live forever. But yeah, because I do have what to do on a rainy Sunday afternoon. But these are the fees in life that we want them to be fees, why? Because in case, God forbid, we need it, even though hopefully we hope we'll never need it, we should never use it, but it's available. If a person is a machzik Torah, supports Torah actively on a weekly basis, on a hourly basis, then even if right now he's not really where he should be or close to it in any way, shape, or form, at least he shows God, I still have the membership card. I'm still part of this club. And when one day he does want to come back, or one day his kids want to come back, they have an open door. It's so much easier. The protection is there so much more. And that's the amazing thing. Kosh Baruch Hu should help that we should have a happy and healthy Shavuot. For the girls that are going to be busy making cheesecakes next Thursday, I hope they come out great. For the boys, there's a shiur next week as usual, a night before Matan Torah, 2 nights before, but a night before Shabbat Matan Torah. No better way to prepare for Matan Torah. Tizku l'shanim rabot, ne'imot v'tovot. Always hot tonight.